Good morning, my little squid. Today's class is in session. We are going to be giving you 5 tips and tricks that will prevent you crashing on road. Well, let me rephrase that. It may not prevent you crashing on road, but it's just little things that I do that allows me to ride in a fun way on road and just not risk a crash, man, because the worst thing that can happen when you're out riding your fun motorcycle is crashing the damn thing. And it's actually, this is going to sound a little controversial, but it's actually pretty easy to not crash. Let's talk about the very first one, and that is the golden rule of slow in, fast out. This is one that I learned way back in the day when I was actually more of a car nerd than a bike nerd back when, I was in high school and stuff. And the trick to this is you want to approach corners slower than you normally would think to approach them, and then on the way out, when you see the corner open up, you give it gas and have fun. Now, although it can be very fun to bury the brakes into a corner, go real deep, and hit that apex, there's a time and a place, and that's usually on track. You don't want to test your late braking capabilities on a motorcycle on public roads. So following the golden rule of slow in, fast out is going to really save your bacon. It's just a great way to ride, and it just helps keep everything in check. I often talk about riding at 5/10 pace, that enjoyable, fun pace, and that's really what it comes down to. Slow in, fast out is that fun, enjoyable pace as we try to keep up with this family sedan here. I think we can, right? We're on a Yamaha R9. Hopefully we can close the gap. Yeah, look at us go. Riding real nice and smooth. All right, so slow in, fast out, golden rule number 1. If you follow that one, you're going to prevent like 50 to 60% of your single vehicle accidents. That's you crashing your bike on your own. Later in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about intersections and other sorts of situations, but I'm going to focus primarily in the beginning here, talking about what you can do when you're out just like carving up twisty roads and having some fun with the bike. The second rule I want to talk about is what I call brakes, brakes, brakes. I think the brakes are the most underrated piece of equipment on your motorcycle. People often talk about the horsepower, the torque, the number of cylinders, how fast the damn thing goes. But honestly, braking components on modern sport bikes are a small miracle. This R9, for example, is equipped with a really nice radial pull master cylinder, gives you a lot of feel on the lever. It also has radial brakes up front, dual discs pinching these big rotors. The brake pad compounds have evolved over the last 10 or 15 years. Brakes are awesome. And the reason I say that they're awesome is because they're your number one tool for not crashing. You can crash really easy using the throttle. Just keep pinning the throttle and see what happens, right? But your brakes are your primary mechanism to avoid crashing. Because I don't care what anybody says, speed is directly correlated with crashing and bad outcomes. If you are piling on speed without visibility, without the ability to brake, you're really asking for trouble. So understanding your brakes, knowing how to trail brake, knowing how to use them, really getting familiar with them is going to be your number one bet. The one thing I thought about actually is a lot of people, I've actually read a study on this, a lot of people that crash their cars, I don't know what the study would be for bikes because I don't think enough bikes have this kind of advanced telemetry available. A lot of people that crash their new cars don't even utilize 100% of the brakes right before they crash. If they tried to brake before the incident, they maybe get to 50 or 60% apparently. So they left 40% of their braking on the table. So as dweeby as it sounds, as nerdy as it sounds, take some time. Go to a parking lot, practice your braking, get familiar with how it feels. Now, because I'm a bit of a track junkie, it would behoove me to tell you that using your brakes really aggressively and figuring out that slow in, fast out feeling obviously will happen best on track. Getting in a controlled environment where you can experiment a little bit with that is going to be the best thing you can do. I really don't recommend testing your braking components and your capabilities on a public road like this. Go to a parking lot, go to controlled conditions. But then what happens is when you get a really good feel for it, you'll be riding around and you realize you're like, oh, I'm nowhere near the limit. I can brake so much more. And that's the next rule I want to talk about is trail braking. But not only trail braking, but what trail braking actually allows you to do that will prevent you from crashing. So there's a really interesting rule in motorcycling that if you've never heard of, the boys over at the Yamaha Champ School talk about a lot. It's that speed equals radius, right? Imagine you're going 120 miles an hour. You're cooking it fast, you're going fast on the highway. If you've ever tried to change lanes, you notice that the bike resists turning a lot, right? It requires a lot more inputs to get the bike to lean over at 120 versus 60, right? This is because speed equals radius. You could think of it as, theoretically, if you're doing 200 miles an hour, your turning radius would be, a mile wide. You're going to give a little bit on the bars and just, very, very gently and with a lot of time and effort and energy, turn. Whereas if you're going 5 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour, you can turn the bike on a dime. So it pretty much maps out linearly. Maybe it's exponential, but I don't think it is. I think it just maps linearly to speed equals radius. So the faster you're going, the less sharp you can turn. So what can we do about that? Well, trail braking gives you a tool while you're mid-corner to adjust your line. This is something I've seen so many videos on where, somebody's having fun with their sport bike, they come up on a corner, and I already see it, as they enter it, they're not on the front brakes, they're doing one of these, they're just like letting off the gas and then getting back on the gas very gingerly, they're not using the brakes. All you've done is remove a tool from your toolkit, because if you're using the brakes mid-corner, it allows you to add a little bit more incremental pressure, reduce your speed, and tighten the radius. You can actually take the corner a little bit more effectively. And it's even better because if you're in a long sweeper and you see a patch of gravel or a dead squirrel or a bump in the road or a pothole or anything that might upset your bike's chassis balance, upset the grip, or just something you really don't want to hit it lean, trail braking and being on the brakes allows you to adjust that line mid-corner. Having that ability is really going to help you out, because that's the primary cause of accidents on street that I've seen, single vehicle on motorcycles, is people are mid-corner and they kind of don't really know what to do. They're kind of confused, and either they go wide or they low side or they just have improper inputs. I mentioned this in my helpful tips for beginner riders, but using your trail braking technique, it just lets you adjust that line. It gives you an opportunity, rather than coming into a corner and just being on the throttle and hoping and praying that your entry speed is correct. What it does, it allows you to adjust. You can modulate, because, this road that I'm on, for example, I've ridden it 1,000 times. I know this road like the back of my hand, but I couldn't tell you the exact speed I enter each and every corner. It's based on feel. Motorcycling is highly based on feel, and you get that sense from the front end of the grip of the bike. When you're braking, you can feel how much more you have to give, and using the brakes like I'm doing right here gives you that option. And watch, I can add a little bit more pressure and I can tighten up, I can change it over, I can move around, because I didn't go in too fast either, right? It all blends together. All these tips and tricks, they blend together, boys. So we've discussed slow in, fast out. We've talked about really understanding your brakes and trail braking. If you just do those first three, you're going to really help yourself out for the future rides that you do and probably not crash. But let's talk about the fourth one. I've talked about it plenty. It's time and place and defensive riding. So time and place is pretty self-explanatory. It's about picking your moments, about knowing your spots. But the reason that prevents crashing is because it lets you stay focused and zen and calm. If you're riding in a way that is high stress, high cortisol inducing, heart rate pumping, right? You fly by a cop on the canyon road, you're like, oh no, is he gonna come get me? You're trying to keep up with your buddies, like it's nighttime and you're street racing. It's the wrong time, it's the wrong place. I'll tell you this, other than riding on track in a very aggressive and racing kind of way, when I ride on road, man, I don't think my heart rate goes much above 100 BPM. I really don't. I think my heart rate probably sits at about 100, maybe 110. My heart isn't pounding when I'm riding a motorcycle. This is a very calm and zen activity for me. I'm sure it's a little elevated because I'm out in the wind, I'm using my body, but I'm able to talk to you guys and ride my motorcycle because I'm using very little of my brain power to do so right now, and because I'm a pretty experienced rider. But over time, you got to get good at picking your time and place, because when you add more variables that you can't control, that's when crashes can happen. When you keep adding, more things you don't understand or more things that are making you scared or stressed, you're way more likely to crash. So try to control those variables. Pick your time and your place. And in regards to defensive riding, which I kind of lump into the same thing here, defensive riding means that you don't ever get mad at anybody for cutting you off. You always ride through intersections as if someone's going to dart out in front of you and kill you. The dumbest thing you can do on a bike is fly through an intersection on a green. Literally, it doesn't matter if I have the clear green for miles, I always slow down for intersections because you never know what people are going to do. On a road like this where there's no in and there's no out, I'm having fun, I'm using my motorcycle, having a good time, but every time I see the possibility of a road that somebody could pop out on, I start getting careful. I start thinking, all right, let me have my brake lever preloaded over here. Let me make sure if anything comes up, I can brake, I can stop in time, everything's cool. So yeah, riding defensively and trying to anticipate those situations is a really easy way to prevent crashes. I see a lot of really preventable crashes online where, somebody's slightly speeding through an intersection and then the person turning right doesn't expect them to do so, or the person turning left doesn't expect them to do so, and they crash into the car. And I'm like, if you had just been going like maybe 30 instead of 55, and you already had your brake lever preloaded, and then you saw the guy threatening to turn, you'd already been on your toes, be like, this guy's probably going to turn in front of me, and then you could have done something about it, It's interesting, the longer and longer I ride, the fewer and fewer incidents I have on road. My last major crash was well over 8 years ago, and that was totally self-inflicted, very dumb riding on my behalf. But I haven't had a single low-side crash, a single scare even on road in many, many years. It's like the more you ride, the more experience you pick up, the less often this happens. And this is something I wanted to bring up as a bit of an additional point. A lot of times people will say, oh man, like everyone's out to kill me. These drivers are crazy out there. I can't believe this. And I'm like, I don't really feel that way. I think maybe the problem is you. If you're riding and every time you ride, somebody's causing you to get crazy upset or something happened or somebody cut you off or drivers are crazy, I'm like, I just think it's you. I don't think it's the traffic because I'm in the same traffic every damn day and nothing happens to me. Nothing that I would deem, cataclysmic or apocalyptic so much that I gotta go tell somebody about it. It just doesn't happen as much, man. Ooh, yeah, listen to the torque on that baby. Listen to the torque on a baby on the R9. That's a fun bike. All right, let's cook it back a little bit. Got a car coming up, and I don't know if there's law enforcement on this road. I just had a nice open spot back there, so I had a little bit of fun. By the way, this R9 that I'm on is a giveaway bike. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, if you enjoyed the content, leave a like for me down below in the video. That will not get you entered to win the bike, but what you could do, if you love the show, love what we do here, daily motorcycle content, trying to make sure that the motorcycle enthusiast is educated and entertained, go to yamaneuver.co, become a member. Our way of saying thanks to you is our amazing giveaway bikes we provide. We've done 68 different motorcycles over the last 5.5 years, and I have no plans on stopping anytime soon. This R9 could show up in your driveway, so hit that link down below and check it out. All right, the last point I'll make here, and it kind of goes aligned with what I've said earlier, is that all of this works in tandem. It might sound kind of cheeseball, but really you want to wake up in the morning and tell yourself, I'm going to ride safe today, man. I'm going to make it to my destination. I'm going to make it back home to my loved ones. I'm going to put together all the decisions and all the choices that I can control so that I have a great motorcycle ride today. If you do that every time before you ride, I promise you'll get better results as well. Because that's something I've started to do as well too. About 4 or 5 years ago, I always tell my wife, if I'm heading out on the bike, I'll say, I'll see you later. Like, I have a plan to see her later. I will see her later, especially now that I have a little baby daughter too. I tell her too, I'm like, I'm going to see you later. Count on it, I'll be there no matter what. And me riding my motorcycle is not going to impede me coming back home to my family. So that's something that is really nice to do as well too, that helps prevent crashes because it puts you in the right mindset. Before you swing a leg over the machine, maybe grab a handlebar, grab a clutch lever, maybe right before you flick the key, you tell yourself, I'm gonna ride today, but I'm gonna make it back. No issue, no problem. Because these things are fun, man, but the serious fun. You gotta take it serious. And that's the thing, if you take it serious, look at this pavement over here providing me zero grip. Because if you take it serious and you enjoy it, you will have a better time with it, man. You will come back home safe. And those decisions that I was talking about earlier, they'll all come together for you. You're not going to be riding in a way that's going to put you out like that, you know? Look at the middle of this pavement. They got to redo this road, but I bet you with all the speed bumps I've seen on this road, they're not going to redo it anytime soon. They're like, you know, go ahead and have no grip on this road. All right, boys, I hope you enjoyed this fun little vlog. Just Papa Yam giving you some classic tips and tricks. If you got your own tips and tricks, drop a comment down below. I love to hear from the community. This is a community-powered situation, and many minds are better than one, typically. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys the next one. See you later.